Right, well this is an opportunity, Madam President and members, to just give you a bit of a sense about the Projects Committee and what it entails, and I've just appended to it some other small matters relating to me myself, seeing as it's 5 minutes talking allowed to do that. So in fact I'm not sure that past President Tony is here. Is he here today? Tony Hassett? No, because really this is all about some of his ideas. You know, he had the old style board. This is our old style board. So there's a lot of people around the table. Many past presidents will recognise this, and I'm sure they all valued it. I wasn't part of that, so I can't really comment directly. But I think Tony had a feeling, and was an expert and is an expert in governance, that maybe the club might benefit from having a slightly slimmed down version. So this is the new style board, which he was operating, and of course President Lee is operating. And part of the basis of that was trying to find out a way of, in a sense, engaging the board with the various projects through the committees, but not overloading the board with membership. So if we think about our major projects, and this gives you a bit of an idea of them, so the forum and the tree planting and the jumbo tennis, in a sense, emerged out of a number of existing committees. Eureka, and I think it's fair to say the art of John Lennon, was somebody's bright ideas which didn't actually have a committee home. But either way, in effect, all of them became too big for the committee boots. So instead of trying to sort of force through all of the management of those projects and those particular committees, what we've done is in effect given each of them a status, but rather than them all being on the board, they are represented on the board through, at the moment, yours truly, although I gather that when I move on to another place, which I'll come to in a minute, some other lucky person, possibly the person who was just speaking to us, James Austin, will be able to pick up the thread. So part of my role is not, in fact, to micromanage the projects at all. That would be a disaster, and I have no desire to do it. But it is to provide a link between them and the board, and to some extent provide a bit of a coordination across it. And for that purpose, and I have permission to reveal this highly classified secret document, we have developed a role matrix. So this is, of course, the work of none other than Yui, and it's not totally ticked off yet, so please don't take a photograph of it or she'll have to be shot at dawn. But what we're trying to do through it is to relate the committees down on the vertical axis, which is the community services and other ones, with the projects, with a view to, in effect, connecting people across those. So it's not a case that you're just in one place, you can only do that one thing. In fact, you're able to contribute across the board if you wish, and in effect the conveners and the committee chairs have both a responsibility but also an opportunity to sort of bring people and assemble them in those various ways. And I think that's a very, very good idea. And what it also relates to is that in terms of the strategy of the club, which has been put in front of people, we are always looking at, when we develop new projects, as how they relate to those objectives and how they relate to this sort of matrix. So now I was actually quite struck by what Margaret just said before, because totally coincidentally it lined up with something that I've been thinking about in terms of talking to you today, which is, there could be a risk that we are under-ambitious with our projects, and that, we need to think big and think tall and think huge. And I crossed that thought with the fact of the country that I'm going to be moving towards a little bit later on. And so I decided to see whether I could find some sort of models for how our projects might look if we put them in a slightly different context. So here's tree planting China South. A mere 500,000 people are taking part in tree planting campaign in Chongqing. So when Ian Frisk talks about planting thousands of trees, and Richard Norman talks about getting everywhere, clearly this is very small beer. I mean, we have a long way to go. And you think if we had that amount of people doing the town belt, it would be done in a week. So clearly there's a lot to aim for here. Eureka China Style, well, it's a different sort of conference where you get the general idea. The China Engineering Science and Technology Forum held at East China University of Science and Technology. And do they know how to pack people into an auditorium? So I think the organisers of Eureka, that should be the sort of target you aim for in terms of the numbers of people who are actually going to be at the Eureka Forum in October. Now, Helen Hancock has been on at me once she heard about the country I was going to, that I had to find a jumbo tennis venue in China. Well,
I got a deal.
well, this is actually work in progress, I have to say. It's the Hangzhou Olympic Sports Centre Stadium in design. It hasn't yet been built, which means it's great because we've got time to inject the jumbo tennis requirements into the design. So I will take it upon myself as your representative in China to fix that up. And maybe next year might be too soon, but maybe 2017, we might be able to have a chance to do that. I have to say that one of the things that's happening in the embassy in Beijing is that the tennis court is being lost, so that will not be available as a jumbo tennis venue. And then in this thing, Rotary Forum, I mean, we don't want that, do we? We definitely don't want that. And I've forborne from trying to put up a picture about the district conference because that might encroach on the next 5-minute talk. But I did, bearing in mind what Kate had said to us earlier, I did do some checking. And there is a Rotary Club in Beijing. There was when I was there 10 years ago. This is actually a friend of mine, Alan Wellington Smith. And I'm not sure about the exact status of the Rotary clubs there. I don't think they have the complete government sanction, but they are operating, and I will certainly link up with it. I'm not so sure whether I can break down the barriers in North Korea, but we'll go and try. Now, many people have asked me when I am going to China, and this is a little bit a case of what I call premature disclosure, because the announcement was made in May. So I thought I'd give you the answer to when I'm going. Now, there's a few people here who will be able to interpret that. But for just the few who cannot, that's the answer. Thank you very much.